were very lucky this past week to receive notice of 2 grant awards. One is for $127,000 to help us with our shared fire chief program with Blackstone, and the other one is $37,000. It's a community compact grant for looking at the potential changes of growing Mendon's highway department into a potential public works department, in sort of centralizing and organizing the services that the town provides. In the past, we have done an RFQ simply by request for qualifications, simply just by contacting a number of firms that do these types of studies and then engaging with them about timelines, and the products are pretty similar for these types of studies, really just about who is available during the window that you have in order to do this. So my expectation and hope would be that we would start this in the beginning of next year, and that we would wrap sometimes before the end of the fiscal year, realistically, and then changes, if any, would be implemented following in other fiscal years. I don't think that we would have enough data points back in time to seriously consider putting any significant changes towards the FY24 budget.
Okay, and I just wanted to add that I talked to both, well, I think we both have talked, maybe you did, to Senator Fatman's office and Brian Murray, our state rep, and any additional monies that we may need, they've agreed to put an earmark in the upcoming budget to help fill any additional expenses that might come up to do with this the Joint Chief for the second year. Does anybody have any questions?
Let me just say that regionalization and efficiency program, which is the one that we received the other grant from, only can fund for one calendar year. It's annual, right? So it's a time period that runs just for a 12-month period, any 12-month period. It doesn't have to be specific to a fiscal year. And so we are, we certainly, we asked for the entire amount. We got the amount that we needed within a calendar year, but we certainly would look for additional funding if we could in order to support the program. And that's regionalization and efficiency. And I think I mentioned this is the 3rd year in a row in which we've received a regionalization and efficiency grant through some sort of partnership that we have with other communities. And then for Community Compact, you may recall, I think this goes back to 2018. The last time I received this grant, it was for updating, for implementing the changes to our building department software. They paid for our IT upgrades back there. So this is the 2nd time we received this grant.
Yeah. Well, the issue that particularly Brian Murray brought up was the danger of using, earmarks for operational costs. But, as we discussed it, this is a work in progress, right? I mean, the fire chief just started this, and we hope to continue regionalization. So there are continuing costs year over year that are going to impact the budget, perhaps, and ultimately lower the overall cost for both towns. But that was the discussion that I had with them.
Yeah, Kim, thank you. That's great news all the way around. Nice work on securing all that stuff. It's greatly appreciated, and it's going to get us a long way, I'm sure.
All right, thanks very much. Now, do you want to give us an update on? Oh, I guess, Lonnie, did you have any success with the greenhouse? Talking about them.
Just waiting. Yeah, just waiting for the owner to call me. Hopefully he was supposed to reach out to me today. I don't know if he got tied up or something. So I'll try to track him down tomorrow if I don't hear from him tonight. Actually, they might be closed today. It's Monday, right? I think they are closed on Monday. So maybe I misunderstood and he was going to reach out to me tomorrow.
Okay. So I know at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, we had talked about a budget update. Can you tell us where we're at with that, Kim? I know you sent us a document with all of the special accounts. But as we discussed, can you give us a...
Sure. So I've been working with the financial team over this past weekend and last week. I was finally able to finalize the document with the new accounts to upload. Speaking with Sean and Eric today, the new accounts have actually been created and the new lines are created. I know this is the minutia, but we had a substantial training on Friday in order to talk about the different types of functionality within the system. But one of the key things to come out of that meeting is that I don't think for this fiscal year that the departments, in addition to basically training ourselves and learning the new system, I think what I'm going to do is issue, rather than sort of telling them to go back into the system and do it themselves, I'm going to encourage them to use an existing templated format that they have, then submit it to me. Then I will meet with them and show them how that looks in the new system and where it is in the new system, because so just to give you an example, and I think I talked about this at the last meeting. So one of the things we wanted to do with this new financial software was to have a standardized UMIS chart of accounts, right? Which is something that the town has never had, right? We've sort of had, I think we've sort of grew over time and added accounts and lines where needed and sort of created this overabundance of, outdated lines and sort of things that don't exist. So just as a general example, we have a department that exists, that's 199, that's the town hall typically, and that's not an actual UMIS account line. That is actually called other municipal. And so it's been used as a catch-all for all these years. So everything that's in that 199 account actually needs to be moved to some other more specific account or department. And so what we'll see with the new budget and the new, many more departments, right? So you'll see facilities, you'll see parks and recreation separately. Like I said, you'll see wherever things are supposed to belong to match the standardized system, that's what we'll have moving forward. And so that won't affect 60% of the departments at all. Their budgets will be exactly the same. But for the ones that it does affect, obviously, I'm going to have to sit down with them and basically show them where those things go now. But one of the pluses of it is that we'll be able to really see the true costs, especially staffing wise per department, which is something we've never had before. We've sort of always had a catch-all if everybody's a town hall employee. That will not exist anymore. We'll be able to correctly allocate, personnel to the departments in which they belong.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm just waiting patiently. I've cut too many people off in the past. So Kim, something like Parks and Recreation, where you're breaking them out, what is the expectation for the budget process on their side? And how do you, I would assume that they share human resources. So you may not have a clear delineation of FTEs by parks versus recreation. So how will that work? So
the way I envision something for parks and recreation, so there's only a limited number of recreation-based programs, right? So let's just assume, and obviously you'll have to sit down more with Dan to sort of really check where he is budgeting which people to, but the majority, 80% of that budget is a parks budget. Employees are maintenance, he's the parks director, right? And so right now in my initial divide of how the budget would go, what I've set up is taken out anything that is purely recreational and moved it to recreation. And then, so for something like that, are we going to get down to, and maybe we could, is he doing 60% parks and 40% recreation?
So
that's really more of a judgment call.
So you'll apply an allocation type of thing.
Potentially. I mean, yeah. And I don't know, and particularly I was thinking around recreation, which is a little bit trickier because you're mostly just talking about kids and us and you're talking about the beach, right? That's what we have for recreation. And lifeguard salaries versus maintenance salaries, those are pretty easy to separate out. But because there's also a revolving account related to recreation, I think it sort of makes sense that budget would be smaller operationally, like on the sheet for us, right? And then you could see, and then same, so when we're considering public works and parks, typically maintenance can fall under that, then we know how much clearly would go in one place or the other, right? So that one's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, I had a question on the revolving account. So would he be limited to using funds from the revolving account to either parks or recreation, or could he still siphon funds where it's needed?
I think there are already limitations on the account in regards to programming, typically.
And And we would
Which would be
have to, it would
recreation
have to go
then,
to
right?
town, it would
Yes.
have to go to town meeting anyways, because they're the ones that set up the revolving account, so.
Yeah, I mean, the intention is certainly not to limit. It's more to provide greater transparency about the actual costs related to the actual things that we're doing, right? So like, there's a facilities account now. Let me think of what here, what the actual, not like, there's a human resources account now. There's a management information in systems account. There's account auditor is one under UMIS, not, this. So they're very select, but then we'll also have one, hold on, public buildings and properties maintenance. That's pretty clutch. These are sort of areas, that people will be able to go back to year after year and say,
Right.
and
Well,
then there's broader categories too in which they fall.
So maybe not for this discussion, Mike, but I was looking at the first report Kim you sent out, the expenses and
Mhm.
you sent it the day after we had the meeting, I think.
Mhm.
And there's going through that just looks like there's a lot of, is there any thought to consolidating or centralizing any of those budget line items? So, things like supplies, everybody has a supply, everybody has maintenance,
Yes.
some have multiple maintenance within the same.
That's exactly what I've done.
Yeah.
So just for process and not to get into it, but I literally took the old existing budget, every line of it, and then went through every single line of every single department's line, and then rolled them up and changed the title into one supplies. So no more $500 for books or $300 for light bulbs, and then for the larger two departments for both police and fire, I mean, I can make basic assumptions about theirs, but I sent them theirs just like I would once we get to the actual new lines, right? I'll go for those departments who might have questions, that's when I'm going to sit down and sort of say, does this make sense to you, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, the key to this is, we're even just learning how to create these lines in the system, change the titles, change the amounts, how to run a new, so it's sort of, we're doing it as we go. But the best part is now, at least the baseline, this UMIS chart of accounts is standardized, right? There's no mysteries in here anymore about what does this line mean? Where will it fall to when the state runs a report? We are going by the book for
Right.
everything that we have.
It's going to be future
I would-
proof too, and that's the most important thing, I think.
I would expect the DLS recommendations would touch on a lot of this as well. I would expect to see some references or recommendations around how that's done. So hopefully it'll
That
go
was-
along nicely.
That was part of the request.
Yeah.
So just for timeline wise, just so you know, my next step, now realizing that there isn't enough time really to train departments and then have them input their data, which, I mean, realistically, like I said, I'm doing 65% of the budgets myself anyway, annually. So what I'm going to do is go back to something that they're familiar with, right? Give them that for this year, and then meet with them and show them what that looks like and where it goes in the next year. But I'll put the data in, and then that way they'll know where it is. It won't be, rather than just saying, look at this, all your lines are different and your department's different now. So that won't happen, right?
And just to give the perspective to it, Kim, and you can disagree with me if you want, but I know we've been talking about this for a couple of years, and COVID got thrown a wrench into it. And then when we were supposed to get Springbrook, and then it was the delay until this summer to start it. I mean, it's just been a series of delays because we wanted to be further ahead than we are right now, but there was really no way around this. So it's not unexpected.
So Kim, one last thing, I was gonna sending a couple bullets coming out of that the last budget subcommittee meeting I went to, but you're aware the Norfolk Aggie is coming our way now versus going to the school. So we're going to be billed from Norfolk Aggie, so it needs to be part of our budget. So I'm assuming we'll have like a BVT like line item in our budget going forward.
So are you saying that rather than Norfolk Aggie sending the bill to the superintendent and then them incorporating that into their budget, it's basically
Comes
coming
to the
direct to
town.
us?
I guess
So
that was the change that might have been discussed that was coming last year that's coming into this year. And I guess that's normal practice is what they're saying. So I just wanted to make sure folks like Kim, you and Mike both had it's real this year. And the best part is they don't really know what the numbers are until like August. So
Right.
well after our budget's approved. So,
So, yeah, so in
And
terms
it-
of and how we budget for education, and again, this is in the minutia, but 300 is the UMass chart of accounts for education. And then within that, we'll have 300 that is Nipmuc, 310 will be BVT, and then 320 will be Norfolk Aggie. And they'll
Right.
be so you'll see exactly who is who, and but they're all under education, right? 300,
Yeah.
but they're in that one group. And that, and it really, it'll make it crystal clear, right, about which thing is which.
Yeah, and it's just for everybody's knowledge. It's it's all going to be, a relatively small number in the big picture, but it should be backed out of the Mendon Upton budget because
Right.
now it's going to come to us directly. But previously, they were paying it and back charging us to it. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think, because we're not actually part of that district, it's a significant number, but it's still relative because it's only about a dozen students, I think.
So just to wrap around back on this, I'm still planning on having some sort of revenue type presentation this month. Looks like now that everything is in the system, now we know how to run specific reports. I've been telling the financial team that they need to be prepared to do a revenue presentation. So probably we'll figure our next meeting on the 21st. It's really, they'll just go over what the different, the revenue, I'll just say this other part. We never spent a lot of time in the past even looking at revenues, right? Or the detail around revenues. We had one tab in a spreadsheet that numbers get put into. Now you can see every single type of revenue we bring in, every single one in one report, basically, and you can then estimate out from that, going forward for every single thing, right? If we're low on fees or if we didn't get something in, it's going to be, there's a lot more detail there that I think people will be interested in, sort of around, I know it's only $2 million of local receipts we're really talking about, but still, at least they'll get to see what type of things we do besides motor vehicle excise, right? They'll be able to see, well, all these building permits, what does that really equal, right? And they'll see it in a printed document now when they're looking at our budget, which I think people want to see, right? So
Right.
I think that'll be good.
All right, and you just mentioned, just a note that I had here is originally we had a meeting scheduled for 2 days from now on the 7th. It's not necessary for us to do that. So the next meeting, that we actually have time reserved would be on the 21st, 2 weeks from this coming Wednesday. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Kim.
all right, so we're not meeting
Thank you.
on Wednesday, Mike?
We are not going to meet on Wednesday. And again, we did talk about potentially a week from Wednesday, the 14th, to have some type of a gathering for all the volunteers within town at the greenhouse. And as Lonnie said, he's working on verifying
Lonnie.
that.
Could always be the 21st too. We could have our meeting early and then go.
Well, let's
Give
see
us-
let's see what's available, right?
If we're aiming for Wednesday, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
There's nothing else. I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second,
All right. All those in favor?
Kenny, aye.
got it, aye.
Brugos, aye.
Chanel, aye.
And Morale, aye. Thank you all very much. Have a great
you.
night and talk to you
You
soon.
as well.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.